Hey guys, welcome to our stream today. A very happy Saturday morning. Today's weather is actually pretty good in Singapore. And if you're watching it from a region as well, hopefully, your weather is there is good as well. This morning, I've already seen the otter, so I'm really happy today. But I'm even happier to run through today's event. So we do have a very exciting event today. I think this is very much something that, or rather, a speaker is actually, on a topic that's very much relational to, most of what we do on our day-to-day work. So really excited to hear more about her as well as her topic later on. But first, let's introduce ourselves. So next slide. Ooh. Okay, so all the slides are
The
changing.
slides are waking up. Yeah, and thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Jiaxing from the Google Developer Relations team. Just here to do a short introduction about Google Developer Space. So we are a platform that connects developers and startup communities from around the region to learn from one another. So really excited to be partnering with Big O Development today and looking forward to the session by Bei later on. I think there's so much we can learn. We took a sneak peek at her slides. We are not going to give it away, but there's going to be tons of interesting statistics that we all learned something new today. So yeah, really looking forward to it.
Okay, so I think the slides are changing. Yep. So joining Jiaxing from DevSpace, you have Julius as well as myself, Wei Yuan. We're from Pico Development as the organizers of this event. And yeah, hope that you enjoyed today's event and our speaker that we have. But definitely do make sure you check out our different socials. That's where we post our latest events or things that we are planning. For example, our Facebook page, that's where we most likely will put all our events over there. So if you are interested in self-development events like this, in terms of for leadership, or in terms of your career as a individual contributor, things like events like this are stuff that we do very, very often. So do check out our different socials, especially our YouTube channel. This is where likely some of you are watching from YouTube, or maybe you are watching this from Facebook. Do subscribe to those channels as well. We do hope to see you from event to event. Definitely do type inside the or chat inside the live chat as well later if you have any questions towards our speakers, as well as maybe towards us in terms of our events.
Yep, and similarly, you can find developer space on all these different social channels, our website, Twitter, Facebook, or Meta, and YouTube as well. Yeah, and you can subscribe because we are gonna have tons of events. I think this is probably the second, one of the last few for this year, but next year there will be many events lined up with developers and startup communities as well.
Right, so I'm very happy to introduce our new sponsor. So this is also a company that I've just joined as well. And just to introduce the company itself, Zealand is an edutech startup in Singapore, which provides B2B as well as B2C solutions for different clients. And as organizations must compete globally as well as adapt locally, performance of each individual is, and as well as a company, is directly tied to ability, each person's ability to learn, unlearn, and relearn. The company Zealand operates in the area to deliver scalable solutions for personal and organizational growth with value and vision. So this is a very exciting company. If you guys are, if you are already working in the industry, you want to pick up new skills, definitely this platform have different tools for you or courses for you to pick up. But also, if you're looking for engineering job, definitely I belong to part of this company as well. I mean, as sponsoring this event, if you're looking for a different opportunity, do write in, let us know as well.
All right, this is the part where we introduce our esteemed speaker. So Bei has been in the industry for, we did mention quite a bit, more than 20 years. She spent the first good chunk of her years in Motorola. She has seen things, a lot of things. First, she is actually from China and eventually moved to Brazil. And in Brazil, she became part of the Motorola software development team for a good 16 years, actually, starting as an intern and working her way up to the senior level, to the staff level, doing all sorts of software. And she has been around doing Android for more years than Chet has. She has seen through things that Chet hasn't seen, or I mean, probably he did. And right after that, she went to Voodoo and did quite a bit of video streaming stuff with Voodoo, as well as Chromecast integration and so forth. And eventually, she moved to Meta or Facebook back in those days, those early days. And she's also working there as a partner engineer. And the very interesting thing about Bei's experience is that she has been an individual contributor in all those years. And it would be a very good opportunity for us to kind of see and learn and hear from her, uh, what are the things that she has run into and things that we can learn from her, because this is something that's very different from our usual topic, but at the same time very important as well in our growth as a software engineer. So without further ado, hi Wei.
Hi everyone. Hope
Hel-
hope everyone is very excited for a Saturday morning session.
Very much. We wake up early, or at least some of us wake up early for this. Cool. With that, I think we're going to hand over the microphone to you and hide at the backstage.
Okay. Thank you, Julius, for the introduction. Hi everyone. As Julius already introduced, I'm partner engineer. My name is Bei. I'm partner engineer at Meta, formerly known as Facebook. And today I'm going to talk about software developer aspiration, Usain Bolt, or MD House. You must be wondering why this title and what this is about, right? Don't get me wrong. It will be very. You will be expecting that I'm talking about famous, very talented software engineers like Turing or Ada Lovelace as aspiration, but why about Usain Bolt, who is one of the fast runners, and MD House, which is a fictional doctor, right? So let me guide you through the slides why I'm talking about this. Okay. I want to talk to you about ordinary developer life as me and as most of you in the audience. I didn't know before I did this presentation, but it seems like we have 26.9 millions of people that are software developers. So I want to talk a bit about my experience as a software developer and explain along the way why comparison between athletes and doctors. Okay, so a little bit about me. I was born in China, in Shanghai, and I moved to Brazil when I was 13 years old. And at the age of 18, as everybody does, we need to choose our career, choose our majors at college, right? So my choice was between medical school or computer engineer. I want to be a doctor because it was the most difficult intro exam that it could exist at an intro exam for college in Brazil, which is called vestibular, and I simply love genetics, so I want to study that. And then I learned that I to study genetics, I need to do 6 years of medical school, and plus I was so afraid of blood, and medical schools are very expensive, so my parents probably would not afford to it, although in Brazil the best public schools are free. But because of the fear of blood, I decided to choose computer engineering. And they are totally different domains, but there's something very common between them. That it's like I will talk about them later. But I always want something new. I always want to learn something that changes a lot. So, and both of them they are. So I just choose to be a computer engineer. Although I didn't never program before, I just went to the college without knowing, without having any coding experience before that. Okay, so after I choose to be a computer engineer, and my thought about this career was, we would not, like, this career is like athlete's career. It doesn't have, I thought that we didn't have long career lifespan, probably until 30s. That's the idea that I had. And then I just need to do something else or become a manager, or I didn't know. So my plan was like, okay, I will get to just work until 30s and then save as much as money as I could, and just go to do another thing. But as you can see, 20 years after, I'm here still as a software developer. And I'm really proud of it, and I'm really happy with that choice. But you know, there is the reason that I stayed so long time. It actually has to do with one choice that I did, which is, next slide. Oh, this is about the athlete's career lifespan, which is usually varies, as you can see, like 5 years, 3 years. And I did one choice in my career life. It was to choose to move to US, and specifically in the Silicon Valley. So when I was working at Motorola, I was really lucky to work with Motorola office in Sunnyvale, which has one of the best engineers that I worked with. They later moved to Google or other big companies, and we were developing a Java Linux platform for mobile, which is really interesting. So when I work with them in Sunnyvale, I did several trips to US, and I learned so much interesting things technically, and I decided that I would want to move to Silicon Valley, and that was actually one of the best choices in my life, because in Silicon Valley or any place in US, I think that's where a software developer get a chance to have longer life, longer career life, because as you can see in this slide, which I was actually surprised as well, is 46% of the software developers are actually over 40 years age. I think that's probably something that only happens in US, because when I was working in Brazil, as most of you probably know, like if you are working in other countries other than US, which is not the headquarter of the tech companies, the project that we work usually like peripheral and less challenging in terms of less technical challenging projects. So when you move to but when US, you get to work on the most interesting and challenging works. So I think the reason that one of the reason that my career was longer than I expected is because I moved to US and work with in the Silicon Valley. Okay. So that's all about how to make a long life work as a software developer. And now I want to talk to you about some similarities that I see between a software developer and a doctor, right? As I said previously, I always love to learn new technologies, and I think doctors and software developer, they are the same. We always need to learn new stuff, and everything is changing, so we need to get updated, right? And one of the thing that we need to do to update ourselves is go to conferences. Actually, Julius, who invited me to this talk, we met at a CAST summit in 2019, and then we talked at Google I/O afterwards, and we get to know each other. So one recommendation from me to you is go to the conferences, meet new people. You will learn so much. You will have people to share your experiences and learn experience from others. And also debugging and diagnostics. This is interesting. Every time that I watch MD House episode, he just do so many different exams, and every time the patient has some reaction, right? And based on those weird reactions, he find out the root cause of the problem. When I see those episodes, I remind myself like, oh, this is exactly when I'm debugging a problem. But in my case, I think it's so fortunate that I don't kill my patient. I don't get into a danger to kill any patient, or maybe just kill the software, yeah, like with the infinite loop or Stack Overflow. So yeah, there's a lot of similarities, and we have on calls, right? And as doctors, and we have burnouts. A lot of people that I've been seeing, young, new, fresh grad, has worked so few years and they got burnouts. I actually myself almost had a burnout, but I got sick, so I realized that my body was actually firing an alarm, telling me what I should not do. So let's say my body was wiser than my brain. And unfortunately, I didn't get burnout. Well, and the burnout terms actually was not even popularized in my time. So, but now it is pretty much. So this is a question that a lot of people ask about, right? How to avoid burnout. And I will say there are 4 points that you might want to look into. The first one is prioritization. How do you prioritize your work, your projects? How do you prioritize the energy that you are investing in your work? I would like to do analogy as a financial investment, right? So your energy is like the money that you want to invest, do certain investments. So choose very wisely. Choose those that gives you more return of investment, right? Choose those, and also diversify your investment. So besides, like prioritize what will give you the most impact, the most outcome of it, you should also diversify in terms of short-term investment and long-term investment. So there are projects that give you short gains, and there are projects that give you long-term gains. You should always mix and match. Like the same advice for investment, like don't put all your eggs in one basket, something like that. So every half or every year, depends the company that you work, you do the planning, right? You do the planning with your product manager, with your manager, and you choose what's the best, how do you gonna to break down the work. So for the work break, there are very large projects, and I always try to do is always break those big projects into smaller ones. So you have smaller milestones, and you self feel that you are achieving each step. So you break it into phases as well, so you can track it better, and you can feel that you accomplished something in a shorter period. Besides than that, so the second point, so that's prioritization, right? The second point that people always tell is say no, right? Say no to some tasks that you don't want to do, or you know that it will not give you a return of investment enough. But I would say, don't say no. You can say no without saying no. Saying no directly make a lot of people put a lot of people in the defensive position, right? You say no. No is a very strong word. So what you can say is you show them your priority list, like the project that you're working on, and you ask them, you know, how they can, how do they see in this priorities, what's the position of the priorities that they will put. And if it's your product manager, your manager, you just show them the list and say, okay, if you think this is really really important, then we will put this in the proper position, but something need to go out, right? So think this about like a bucket, right? Your capacity is a fixed size bucket. So if something goes in, something needs to go out. Otherwise, your bucket will overflow. So just show them the person, and ask them to work with you, right? Ask them to prioritize together with you. And they sometimes probably will realize, oh, I think this one person already has enough in his bucket. And maybe we should just, instead of not now, instead of saying no for now, is like, no, probably not now, but we can do that in another phase, right? So you can say no in a very different ways without being very heavy, very strong reaction to that, right? And the third point is about break and rest. Break is you can do this in your whole day, right? During the day, you can have small breaks. I actually walk like 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the evening. Now that I'm working from home, that's actually make it easier. And you can have breaks in the weekend, right? You have the weekend. And you take your PTOs, you space them out, so don't get too cluttered in one block. And then you also you really should take your PTOs and rest, right? Sleep is the best of the rest. As a human being, we need sleep. But other than sleep, there are other things like mental rest, right? So you can just maybe pick a book, watch some video, or play a game. Anything that makes you feel rested, like mentally, right? Do everything that you really like to do this break. But you need to have this in your mind, like you need those breaks, right? Otherwise, your body will not be able to handle it. And the last one is, I always tell people that want to move to another job, right? They say, oh, I'm burning out this job because this job is so demanding, people are so demanding, and our performance evaluation is so hard. What I say to those people, I do a mentorship at Meta, and what I usually tell people is like, you are the one who decide what project you choose and what work you do. You know your best. You know what's the capacity of your bucket. So you just go and set your boundary. And it's really not about to move to another company. It's about you. You need to change yourself, right? You need to set your boundaries. Changing company will not solve the problem if you didn't change yourself. So that's my basic that's my advices for how to avoid burnout. And it's really I think everybody once in a life of a developer have faced this, and I hope that those advices can help you. Okay, so we talked about how to have a longer life of software developer, right? First, we need to choose where to work and what to work and how to not burn out. And then now I want to talk about how to have a happy and fulfilled software developer life. this is funny. I was sharing this with my coworkers, and they were like, "How can be happy? Like, it's always so stressed, the software developer's life." I'm like, really? I uh I mean, I know we have a lot of things to do. It is a very demanding work, right? As it is demanding for a doctor, right? But what I think is actually experience can make it way easier, right? Like now, after 20 plus years working as a developer, I realize that if I see some code dev, and I can sometimes smell just at a glance if it will cause any problem or not, if it looks better, if it looks good or not. And by experience, you know there are certain solutions will not work out and will require a lot of work. So you already kind of know by experience the big directions that you should take for solutions, and you know what to avoid. And even after 20 years, I'm still thrilled when my code compile or run the first time. And that happens a lot on the hackathons. And I've usually when I go to the hackathons, I'm like, oh my god, I'm not sure if it will work, right? So there's a little bit of unknown, which make this work super exciting because you don't know if it will work or not. There's always an uncertainty. And when it works, it's amazing, right? It really makes me very happy. I mean, this is kind of enjoyment I cannot get in anywhere else, right? So, talking about how to have a happy software developed life is you need to explore what are the working areas that you want to do. It's like a specializations as a doctor, right? If you wanted to work on front end, on back end, on the mobile, on the server, if you wanted to work with machine learning, or there's a lot of areas that exist in the computer engineering, and everything is so interesting, right? But you need to experience different areas, so you find out what's the one that you really like to. In my case, I worked so much time on mobile. Yes, I really like work on mobile because it's a physical device and you can feel it, you can see it, and it has limited resources in space, in processing power, in network consumption, so in battery consumption. So everything that has a limited capacity is more challenging, right? So you need to find creative solutions to make that work. Knowing yourself and your best abilities. So exactly, again, it's hard to know yourself, but you need to, right? Only knowing how you are, what things you like, and what the abilities that you have, you will have a happy life. In my case, I actually loved everything at school, but there's something that I had as a child dream was I wanted to learn all the languages, human languages. I didn't know about the computer languages, but I wanted to all the human languages in the world and work at UN. Well, I didn't realize exactly the same. I didn't make that a reality exactly, but working at a Facebook, working at any big company is like working at UN, because you talk to very different people. They have all different. They are from different countries, and in my case specifically for the part engineer, when Facebook recruiter reached me out, I was so happy about that, because the job description is exactly something I want to do, but I never figure out that there is a position like that. So partner engineers, basically you talk to different partners all over the world and make a bridge between the product engineers with the external partners, right? So I always love to talk with people, and I always love to travel. And the traveling is in the job description of partner engineer. So I said, this is really a dream job. That's everything that I wanted to do. Again, for everyone is different, right? So you need to find really what you like and what you are good at, because there are two different things: what we really like and what you are good at. And maybe try to find a kind of job that makes you happy. And for me, this is a job that makes me happy, and I hope you can find yours. And last slide, as 3 takeaways that I want you to have for this speech is: remember, software developer career is a marathon and not a sprint. So you don't need to be as quick as Usain Bolt, right? And just go for the long run. And then choose projects wisely, as they are your financial investments. Make them, diversify them, make them choose those ones that have more impact, right? Don't burn yourself out. Know about your limits and put your limits for others to know. And the last is make your dev lab as interesting as MD houses, and have a long and happy career, right? Yeah, this is the end of my speech, and thank you very much. I'm open for the question Q&A.
Wow, super cool. Lee, thank you so much for sharing all the things that you have learned across those 20 years of your career. And I think one thing that you did mention quite often is the happiness, like being happy as a software engineer.
It's
It's
not
not
an
easy.
It's not a mission impossible.
Yeah, maybe we can start off with, I guess, the cultural nuances, right? Because I think you sort of mentioned it quite a bit. The United Nations where you work, United Nations. So you kind of started off from China and then kind of moved to Brazil, and now you're in the US, and then you travel a lot, right? So you kind of get a sense of various cultures, like the happiness and the stress and all those things. Like, can you tell us a bit about how you kind of navigated around all these cultures?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for bringing this. So when people ask me about difference, actually the Chinese culture and the Brazilian culture are super different. They are totally the opposite. I was talking with you guys, right? Chinese and other usually Asian culture, people tend to think to plan worry about a lot about the future, right? And in counterpart, Brazilians, they just enjoying the present. They don't worry about the future, right? Actually, I was working in my parents' restaurant in Brazil, and one of the customer came, and he just spent, I think, half of his salary of the month in one day in the restaurant, which was really good for us. But I was super curious, so like, why don't you worry that you will not have like money for the rest of your month? He was like, his answer made so much impact on me. His answer was, I don't know what will happen tomorrow. What if I get into a car accident and not alive anymore? At least I enjoyed myself today. So I'm like, you're actually right. That's a possible scenario, not probable, but a possible scenario, right? So what I choose by comparing those two cultures in the end is I choose the middle path, like what Confucius says, choose the middle path, right? That's actually applies for the computer computer algorithms as well. Usually the best algorithm is the one that gets the best outcome for the average case, right? Not the extreme case. So anyways, this is just so I plan a bit for the future, but I also enjoy my present. So that's the takeaway for how to, these two different cultures, how I can learn from each other, right? And make my own that works for me. And about American culture, there is something that I really like about American culture. It's like people are very direct. I just save so much of my time. I just, when I talk with my coworkers, it's like I just say what I think, and I just say, this is not gonna work, or you should do this or that, and I don't need to go around about things. Another thing, which is a very like a Silicon Valley culture, is not afraid to fail. That's something I learned with one of my best friend, Motorola. She's a designer, and she told me, Kristen, when we did a hackathon together, right? She was inviting me to do the hackathon. I'm like, oh, I don't think I'm gonna to work on this hackathon. Why? Because I think it might not work, the idea, right? And what she said was really important for me. Is like, babe, if you don't fail, you are not stretching, do the best that you can, right? Because if you just do the things that you are certain of, what's the challenge? What's the joy, right? You are not stretching all your abilities. And I realized that has something to do with my Asian culture. My mom is a tiger mom, and when I go to those exams and tests, I was like 90%, 99% of a certainty that I will succeed, right? So I was so afraid when I go to a situation that I don't know if I will or not succeed. But that's actually where you realize you can go miles longer than you actually do if you afraid, right? So this is really something I learned about American culture, especially Silicon Valley culture, is like, go for it. If you have like 10% of certainty it will work, just go for it. Even if it fails, you will learn a lot. And you will go beyond what you think you are capable of, right? Yeah, so that's the answer for your question about different cultures.
Wow,
And what
that's very detailed. Thank you so much, Wei.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a really interesting answer. Maybe to branch off that, so if another question here, so what are the decision points for you to move towards Silicon Valley? I think you've shared a bit about the
Yeah.
view on not afraid of failure. Were there any other factors that actually drive you towards moving towards there?
Yeah, so in Brazil, I felt like I was get into a point of my career that I don't see a lot of people that are going to the technical career way beyond me. You know, when you look around, you don't see examples of people that you say, oh, I want to be that person when I grow, right? When I get older.
Sort of like role models?
Yeah, role models, right? That's basically because in Brazil, like the core projects, they are usually not in Brazil, right? The core projects are usually in the headquarters in US. So what we do is less interesting, less challenging project. So I felt my career was stuck. And what happened in Brazil is like most of the senior developers, they become managers, right? Because you don't need too much of the technical requirement, challenging requirement for the developers. So it's cheaper for the company to hire a new fresh grad student, than hire more senior people. So that's why I decided to move to Silicon Valley. It's because I think this will be the only place in the planet that I could prolong my technical career. Yeah, so those are, and really, I working here, it's my dream come true. It's like so many smart people that I work with, and just makes, and everything is less bureaucratic. You know, I don't know. Probably depends on the company, but I feel like in Brazil has more process to follow. Like there's a lot of process, and you don't have too much of freedom on decide what kind of thing you want to work. You know, yeah, and like all those companies I worked at, like Voodoo or Meta, especially Meta, there is really a lot of freedom to choose what to work on and how you are going to work on, and there's almost no micromanagement. Never, actually. I never, but they're way more like in Brazil, I feel like. Yeah, so those are the decision points that made me to move. It was not an easy decision, but I think it was the best decision of my life.
Just curious, maybe if I can extend that question a little bit. So, how do you got to know about, let's say, the culture in SV before moving there? Was this through sort of like word of mouth, or from friends that you already had who were working there?
Excuse me, you say how
How do you got around to uh knowing that, or rather getting to the thought process that, okay, perhaps in SV the culture would be a lot better. Was this something that you got maybe from like word of mouth, like, or from your friends, things like that?
Oh, I actually worked with the engineers at Motorola in Silicon Valley. So I worked directly. I spent several trips. I did several trips to Sunnyvale, and I worked with them. So it was like a personal experience. It's not like somebody telling me that. So I personally felt the difference.
Thanks.
Question?
Yeah, that does answer the question. So yeah, I was just curious about that part, because I think from time to time, also for myself, I was also like, when I was younger, maybe I was younger, like now that I'm married with family, it's a little bit harder to talk about moving. Thanks. But yeah, it's in the past I have thought about things like this before, talking to friends. But I think, yeah, having that personal experience definitely would be a lot stronger.
Yeah.
So maybe to branch off to a slightly different question, and I think this was also like one of the key points of what you have shared. Maybe to start off with a very high level question first. Like, what do you think about the definition of burnout? Do you think it has changed? Maybe over these last 2 years, with the pandemic, perhaps I think people might have a very different outlook towards like what burning out feels like now.
Right. Yeah. I think, well, when at my time, burnout doesn't even have this name. So, but yes, pandemic really changed things, and I feel like, for me, burnout is most mental burnout than the physical one. Physical one is when we try to compensate, try to do as much as possible as a consequence of the mental burnout. I think for me, basically, is mental burnout. And a pandemic, I see a lot of people having very pessimistic thinking, right? I myself, I'm super optimistic. So, and then how I do this is I don't listen to those people that have negative thinking. So I traveled as much as possible in this pandemic time. I traveled mostly inside of US, right? Because outside was impossible. Travel by road, and I visited most of the national parks. I discovered there's so many national parks in the US. My thinking about pandemic and how to deal with it was, I think the best defense mechanism that we have in our body is our defense mechanism, right? And how make that defense mechanism strong is to eat well, to exercise, and to be happy. And doesn't matter what virus it is, my defense mechanism can beat it if I do those three things. And those three things only depends on me, not depends on everybody else, right? So I took my vaccine. We believe in science, right? That's no doubt. I took a vaccine. I did everything that I can, but I don't think this as something that is burning, making me. Actually, I don't think about virus. I don't think about it. I do my work. I live as much normal as I can, right? And I travel all those places because traveling really makes me feel happy, and because I change the routine, and I need new things. I need a change of the scenario to make me happy, because your brain works more actively when you in a different situation, right? So you don't stay like you don't live as a machine, right? You need to adapt yourself. You need to change your routine. And yeah, I think people should just really have, I think it's more important to be happy and be healthy than thinking about this virus. It's like thinking about it really doesn't help. It's other way around, right? I see Julius laughing.
So maybe branching off that, in fact, I want to ask, like, maybe this question actually comes from me. The next one, so this one is actually something I have been sort of experimenting with. Like, how do you deal with burnouts with your fellow coworkers? Like, I think for myself, definitely doing more video chats with them. One other thing actually I'm trying to experiment with is actually getting people to, okay, safely and responsibly get out of their house. Social distancing, of course, but we also go out and, let's say, like, I think just now, as you mentioned, exercise outside. You do your, I think just now you mentioned about your walks that you do in the morning, I believe. So I
Yeah,
do
in the
kind of do
morning.
that with my friends as well, and coworkers, to sort of get us to maybe, yeah, stop thinking about things like, as you mentioned, about the virus. Think about, other things. There's many other things that you can talk about in life. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think about this? Yeah. Like, how do you deal with, how do you help your fellow workers in terms of dealing with this burnout?
Well, actually, I have a more like my daily life is more like how to help my parents to get out of this burnout. My coworkers, I think they are fine, but my parents just keeping talking me about this every day, and I call them every day actually. They're living in Brazil, so I try to talk to them to do those things like walk, and just by talking, right? I think just by talking to another human being, you can already help them. I do that as a mentor at Facebook at Meta. I feel like most of time, like, actually people are more in need of a therapist than a coworker. I mean, just by listening what they have, right, and by talk to them, I think that's already a lot of help. Yeah.
Definitely agree with being a listening ear. I think that does help. I think even for myself, I do feel that when I have something, chatting with my family, with my wife especially, I think that does help a lot.
Yeah, and I do try to ask them to do some get together. We actually physically meet each other and outside of work, and also, do some fun activities together, like hiking. Yeah, everybody needs a little bit of fun.
Definitely,
Thanks.
definitely agree with the hiking part. Oh yeah, to you, Jesse.
Yeah, thanks, Bei. Have another question. So I think it's really interesting that you have spent more than 20 years being on the individual contributor track. So yeah, I wanted to ask, like, when did you decide to be on the IC path instead of managerial track? Because I think for many people, they would think that it's natural progression to become a manager after certain years. So yeah, like, when did you decide? And also, were there people around you who maybe sort of encouraged you, why don't you consider a managerial track, or yeah, things like that?
Right. This is a very common question as well. So again, everybody is different, right? What I say here will not apply to everyone. But I mind be a manager one day. I don't know, right? But the main reason I stayed as I see is when I moved to Silicon Valley, actually there are more needs for a developer than managers, right? That's one reason. Another reason is a lot of people think that manager's job is easier. I'm sure that Julius doesn't agree with that, right? So being a manager actually differs a lot from what we learn at college, right? At college, you learn the technical things, but being a manager is about people skill, right? And you really, like, I see good managers, they really feel happy when their reports grow, right? They are happy to see them grow, which is not every person like that, right? Some people, bad managers, they feel threatened sometimes, right, by the growth of their reports. But good managers actually, they are smart, and they know that if their reports grow, which means that will make them grow as well. But not everybody genuinely think that way, right? So I think being manager, first, you will have a lot of meetings all the time, right? Second, you will need to talk every report, right? Have like one-on-one, and everyone is different. And you need to, I think a manager should major in psychology. You know, the first thing is you need to understand how human behavior, right? What motivates people, and what makes them angry or frustrated, because those are the most important tasks of a manager. And you really like to interact with people. So that's why it's really hard to find good manager in the tech company, in the tech side, because when we go to college, it's actually a totally different set of skills that we learn. I would say actually opposite of the skills. Right? Because we learn how to deal with machine. We can do anything with machine, but with people we can't. So, I mean, people really need to consider those things. There are a lot of technical people that are very good managers. There are, but I mean, when people think about this question, they really need to ask themselves, am I this person that I like to interact with people, and I like to see them grow and not feel threatened, right? And manager nowadays, really, it's not like those kind of people that give you orders or whatever, right? It's really about like a coach to how to remove the blocking things, and make your life easier as a developer, and make you do the best you can, bring the best of you, right, to your career, to the career, and to the company as well. So people really don't need to think about this.
Yeah, really interesting sharing.
Yeah, thank you. And I think we have a question from the audience. Uh, One of the audience, Mauricio, thank you for asking
Oh,
this
he's my
question.
friend.
Oh, hello.
Hi, Mauricio. Mauricio, tell a bit about software competition among peers if it forced you to change something on your career. Interesting. Competition. I think I never felt, yeah, but that's a good question because I was talking about athletes, right? And the athletes are all about competition. Yeah, this is something I learned along the path is, well, I am, don't get me wrong, I'm super competitive. I am super competitive. I always want to do the best I can, right? And I have been like top of my class and everything, and I just do the best I can always. Oh yeah, remember Julius that cast summit? You beat me on that one. You get most of the question right. I remember you because of that. Okay.
Oh no.
Yes, competition. I mean, I yes and no. Like I compete in like a very sporty way, right? Like I love see people that really are really smart and love to work and talk to them, because I learned so much with them. I never felt like threatened or being a lower position because somebody is better than me. And this will always happen, right? We live in long enough to know that there is always somebody better than you, no matter what. We could be, when we are younger, it's easier to be the best of the school, of the class. But when you go to work, actually it's way harder. There's so many brilliant people, right? So many smart people, and the subject is so broad. Like you cannot possibly have the knowledge of everything, right? So I actually, Facebook is really nice. Like sometimes I need to ask questions. There's always a group, like we use the workplace, so there's always a group that are experts on that subject, and I pose a question, and like their 5 minutes in their time of their time can save me like hours or days of work, right? So I'm I'm really aware about there are experts on everything, and we should just be humble and learn from the best. And there's like I think the change, if he's asking if there's any change that I did in my career, is I learned that there's always somebody better than me, and better I learn from them instead of compete, right? Because competition in that way is like really not makes you better. I mean, we can compete in a way that makes you better by learning from them, not by, I don't know, be angry or something. Hope I answer your question, Mauricio. Nice to see you here.
Yeah, thank you, Mauricia. And I think if you have further questions, please do post it in the live chat as well. I wanted to ask a follow-up to Wei actually. You did mention that you are competitive, right? And one thing that always happens, especially in the Asian context, is that we always want to compete and be the best, and because of that, right? Happiness is something that really struck me because when you kept talking about happiness, that it's good to be happy and so forth, it's something that everyone seems to aspire, to be happy. That's why we go to work. That's why we try to do the things we love to do and so forth. But it always seems to be a moving target, right? And so it struck me because it's very hard to find people who are generally happy, and and you see that they are happy, and like we also know that there's like years and years ahead of work, of perhaps some form all sorts of anxieties like performance anxiety. Sometimes you screw up and then you feel bad about it. There's all those things that are going to come, and things that we are dealing with. So I know you did mention and touch on it quite a bit, like your self-defense and so forth, and going for a rest and hiking and so forth. Like, was there a time whereby you had the realization that, oh, I have to change my mindset, like I should be in control of my environment rather than the environment controlling me, like those kind of realization moments that will help us kind of, I guess, enjoy the same happiness that you're enjoying yourself, because I think it's something that most of us aspire to have.
There was actually a specific moment of my life. It's when I moved to Brazil. So my parents was in a very bad financial situation. Like my parents moved with only $2,000 in their pocket from China to Brazil, and they started to work. My father, he was electrical engineer, and my mom was a Chinese teacher in China. And when they moved to Brazil, they could not exercise their profession, so they opened kind of a restaurant, right? And and the private school was super expensive for us, and I didn't know one word in Portuguese. So I I I I was in a very frustrated situation. I was hopeless. I didn't see my future at all, right? Like I had a very stable environment. I was in a great school in Shanghai, and certainly my life changed so much. So everything was really hard, and then I kind of tell myself is like, either I survive this or I might just die, right? Yeah, I know it's a bit dramatic, but but it was really hard situation. Then I had no person to talk with, right? So I started to talk with my God, right? And about talking what the 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 hard situation I was, and I figured out that I need to do something, right? It's like my parents could not do anything because they're like in a probably worse situation that I was, and I had to do something. So if I want my, you know, take the ownership of my life and decide my future. So I learned that in Brazil the best colleges are free, right? So my plan was, okay, I'm gonna to get into this college, right? And but I have to go to like a private school to get a better education, so I can get into the and I studied so much Portuguese. I memorized 20 words per day. Like, just when I arrived in Brazil, it was sixth grade, because I was supposed to be 7th grade, but I ended up in 6th grade. And I had a very nice teacher. I even wrote a composition for her about what did she gave me Portuguese classes for free. Like, she just taught me. I was in a public school, so I learned. I memorized 20 words per day, and in 1 month I moved to 7th grade after a Portuguese test. I don't know how I managed to do this, but I was super motivated. It's like, it's what they say, when you are in certain kind of danger, right? That you don't see any exit. So you need to do something. Otherwise, you will just, and give up is never in my dictionary. I never give up. I always try whatever I can. So yeah. So I got and after that I got a scholarship. So I studied 7th and 8th grade in the public school, and then I got scholarship in the best private school in the city, and then I got into a college, the free college, which is one of the best in Brazil. Yeah. And my position in the college exam was the first in my major, and people was super curious because they could not figure out my gender based on my name, right? Because it's a Chinese name. So they were like, "Who is this Bay?" And they figure out it was a woman, a girl, and they were like, the computer engineers, like, my class was 10 out of 90, which was a record in terms of women. And they asked me to, like, go and kiss the motherboard as I was lucky to be the first one to kiss that motherboard, because after me, everybody kissed that one as like, Anyways, so Julius, yes, there was one moment in my life that I have to say, no, I need to do something. And I needed to, whatever I had before, I just forget about this. Forget what I had before. I need to adapt to my new environment, which was totally different environment. And I need to make the most of it. And what I learned from one of my friends in college, he said to me is, but it doesn't matter what you are doing and where you are. Just get the max of everything. There is always a positive side in everything. No exception in life. Okay? There's always a good side. Just go for that and forget about the downside. Yeah, so I think everyone, I mean, I don't want everyone to experience the same experience that I did, but sometimes a hardship is really something that changes your life, and And after that, it's like nothing can be worse. You know, I can live in Africa or Antarctica, whatever. I can make it. So yeah, and I want to that my daughter experience this kind of thing, and when you're younger, actually, it's better to experience hardship because you have the whole future ahead of you to recover, right? To do something. So if you're a parent and listen to me now, it's like, don't shield your child for hardship. They need it. They need it to become stronger, right? They need it for them, so they will not suffer when they get older. And hardship when you're young, it's not hardship. It's fun. It's life experience. Yeah. Hope
Wow, Wei.
did I answer
Yeah.
your question?
Very much, very much. Like I think we can have this conversation forever. It's so good to hear your stories. Thank you so much for all the wealth of knowledge that you condensed. Um, I think we might be running out of time, so I think Wayan might have the last question. Uh, mm,
Yeah. So okay, let me move to the last question. Okay, so a little bit long, so let me try and condense it. So essentially, I think a big part of your sharing, it's mostly pivoting towards learning more about yourself. So
Yes.
what would you recommend, our viewers in terms of, especially for those younger ones who just enter the workplace, how should they? Maybe it sounds a little bit, I guess, somewhat mundane, but I think it's still important in the sense of how do you very much or easily be able to discover, let's say, know what's your own limits, what should you do in terms of getting to know yourself better. Maybe I think one of the examples I put there is maybe getting a mentor to coach you, or would there be any other ways that you would recommend?
I think getting a mentor is super good, super, and we always have something to learn from others, no matter what, no matter their age, their experience. We always have something to learn from others. But self-discovery is hard. It's not. I feel like actually one of my mentees, he said that what I talked to him actually made him to realize how he is. So that's actually proves what you are saying, like mentor can help you on that, right? Somebody sharing their experience can bring, resonant, or bring your thinking about yourself. I think that's definitely one way. I'm thinking about if there are other. There's one thing is like some of the things in life you cannot teach. You need a person to experience it, right? Your teacher will say things to you, and we learn history for that same reason, right? We learn for some other people's mistake in the past, so we don't do this again. But almost all the time we will do this again, right? Because if we never experience ourselves, we just think it's not gonna to happen with us. So what I will say is you need to experience. You need to interact with as much as people you can, and try to put yourself into different situations. I mean, I learned my professor put me in a conference when the author of the article was not me, and I learned a bunch. I cried, but I learned a bunch. Just get out of your comfort zone. like recently, I've never been a web developer, but recently I had to. So I learned a lot. It's never comfortable. So the thing is, you need to do these uncomfortable situations and go through the uncomfortable situations so you can learn about yourself. You will learn what you really don't like, or what you thought you will not like, but you're actually enjoying it. So that's the advice is put yourself into out of your comfort zone and go for it. Like live the life at the like with the most intensity that you can. Try different things, meet different people, even those that you are not like this, not the stereotype that you are used to. Yeah, I think it's that.
Wow, that is a very, very powerful message. But I think that's really very important. Like beyond just learning from a coach, going through your own experience. I think this is a recurring theme, throughout your entire sharing. I think, and it's a very good thing that you're sharing with us as well. Embracing failure, get into uncomfortable positions, learn from the experience. I very much agree with those themes. Sadly, I think we are running out of time today, but I think that has been a very great sharing that you've done with us, a very heartwarming journey, and very in-depth, look at what you have done over these few decades. Thank you very much for joining us today and sharing with us, your entire journey over here. Over there, I'm guessing this is going to evening to night, in your time zone.
Night, yeah.
Yeah. So
Thank
yeah,
you so
and
much.
thanks for joining us and sharing with us. Yeah.
Thank you, Julius, for inviting me, and thanks, Weiyuan and Jiaxing. Nice to meet you guys. I'm very happy to be here and sharing. Thank you.
Thank you. See you next
Thank
time.
you, Bei.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Cool.
Right.
I think
So
this is the
yep.
part.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Julius.
No, I think you should go ahead. One of us is going to do all the the ending, the closing
Okay.
remarks.
Okay, so yeah, we've reached the end of today's sharing. I hope you guys have picked up something useful from today's sharing. I mean, definitely I did. This has been a very insightful session. So yeah, before we sign off today, make sure you do check out our social media. That's where we will post our next events. Not just for Big O, but also for developer space. So yeah, see you guys next time. Adios. Bye bye.
Bye.
See you. See you. See you. Bye bye.